Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship at 1631 Ford Parkway, St. Paul, Minnesota. We meet every Sabbath from 11:30 a.m. to sunset. Please join us for a little while. Each Sabbath, we have groups that come in earlier in the day, middle of the day, later in the day. If things are happening in the world, people show up. What do? I teach you from the Bible. I teach you from prophecy. I teach you from the news. And what I want to make you aware of is that things are relevant today. The Bible is very relevant today. I am not a preterist. A preterist would believe that all the things from the Bible, they ended in about 70 to 90 AD. They're just all done. And so whatever John wrote in Revelation is done. Well, it's not done. It's very relevant today, and it's happening today as prophecy is being fulfilled. So I am not a preterist. I believe that the Bible is topical today and critical to know today, and that the news must be viewed in light of prophecy and the Bible. So I believe in modern prophets and ancient prophets. The ancient prophets obviously are biblical and are more notable, but there are modern day prophets, and I cite them. Now, some are prophets and then they fall away, but that happened in the Bible too. Keep that in mind. And some are just flat out false prophets. So you have to test the prophets, as Paul tells us in 1 Thessalonians 5:19 through 20. He says, chew on it. That's my word for it. Chew on the prophecy, and if it tastes good, eat it. Otherwise, spit out the bones. That's my paraphrase. I believe the seals have been opening, that the first seal is open from the west, the second seal from the east, the third seal from the north. And then the fourth seal is due to open at any point in time from the south. The fifth seal will be martyrdom, and the sixth seal will be burning figs and an earthquake. Now, I date it, and I'm not positive about this one. The only one that I really know is the third seal because I was part of that prophecy. But that in 1967, it seems as though Moshe Dyan handed back the Temple Mount to the people that really wouldn't revere God and his holy location, and so his holy place, the Temple Mount. And so it delayed the Messiah by 50 years, and it just kicked off this horrible onslaught against Western civilization since then. The second seal seems to be related to Bush and Cheney and those types of people, the neocons, which we'll see more of right now. And those were the oil wars that started after 9/11, really officially in 2003. And people like Dick Cheney, they want to make money off oil, and they don't care how many lives are killed as a result of their efforts to make cash. Then in 2012, we had Hurricane Sandy. It was prophesied perfectly. It happened exactly during the false Sukkot of Jeroboam's time frame, and so that's 1 Kings 12. And then basically that means that if that prophecy was exactly according to 1 Kings 12, that means that God's seal opened about Av 9-ish, sometime during the summer of 2012. That means we're 7 years out on it too. The fourth seal, we're seeing the signs of the completion of the third seal and now the start of the fourth seal. We're seeing, it says war up there, really think more in terms of death. It's thanatos, and that's what it means. So it's famine, thanatos, famine, plagues, and therion. And those are real standard in the Bible all the way through Ezekiel 7, Ezekiel 14. It's in Deuteronomy 32. It's everywhere. And then again in Revelation 6:8. The fifth seal, again, is martyrdom, svadzo, shekin in the Hebrew. It is ritually binding and slaughtering. It's just like Yitzhak almost was sheked by his father in Genesis 22. Then the last one is the sixth seal. The seventh, I'll actually talk about that today. I've never really talked about it, but there was a wonderful sign that happened today from Israel, so I'll show you that. Then the third seal, I believe, is open and full open right now because you're seeing Iowa has 48% planted right now. Normally it should be 76% planted. Minnesota has 21% planted. We should be at 65%. North Dakota 11%. Well, they should be at 43%. South Dakota 4% planted. The average is 54%. So this is a total catastrophe for U.S. corn production and other types of production going on right now, soybeans and other things like that. The heartland of America is flooded, and so this is according to Michael Snyder, who is a friend of mine from the Economic Collapse blog, and he is telling us that it is horrific right now, and I'll show you some pictures of that too. Then over in the rest of the world, the United States isn't noticing this, but African swine fever has spread over many provinces of mainland China, and it's affected 150 to 200 million pigs. And so what you're going to notice is pork production is going to drop, and there isn't a way to make it up, and so you're going to see either people starving, or what you're going to notice is that the food prices are going to go through the roof for both the grains and the meat. So you'll notice it just can't be made up. So when you see that much of a disease factor, you will see that we'll pay for it at the grocery stand. Third seal again. This is a picture of the Mississippi, and this is a quote from Henry Klein. This is a flood in the Mississippi that's ignored by the national media for unknown reasons. My friends and family can't plant their crops. Some have to take a boat from their home to the nearest dry road and back. Many have homes that are underwater. This is continuing on in the heartland of America. This is where we plant the crops. You may not notice this, but your prices are going to go up. That's third seal problems. Fourth seal. Iran could emerge emboldened from this ISIS fight that has dominated recent discussions among Donald Trump's uber hawks, which is John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, there's Bolton listed, and Mike Pompeo, both of which are central to an escalating U.S. sanctions and program and Washington's abandonment of the international nuclear deal signed by Tehran and the former U.S. President Barack Obama. So basically, Iran's saying, fine, you want to back away from this agreement? We're going to get our proxies in action and we're going to go to war. And so that's a sign of the fourth seal. Then next, after that, this is another sign of the fourth seal. In a war with the United States, Iran would have these proxies fighting by its side. So here's a list of the proxies. Hezbollah, a terror group whose Arabic name translates into Party of God, was established by Iran's Revolutionary Guard during Lebanon's civil war in the 80s. Houthis, the Yemenis. Yemen is just a mess right now, people. These are Shiite rebels, so Hezbollah is basically controlled by the Shiites, which it would be. There are two different groups. There's the Sunnis and the Shiites. And the Shiites are more Iranian, and the Sunnis are more, they're Arabic. And so the Houthis are fighting down in Yemen and just destroying that place. The Iraq militias, Iraq is generally more Sunni, but their leader was, Saddam Hussein, was more of a Shiite. And so you'll have a mixture in Iraq, whereas Iran not so much. So but there's the fights between those two groups. Then the Gaza terror groups, which could be Sunni, but they don't care because they're looking for cash to fight against Israel. So they have a common enemy, which is Israel. So this is another sign of the fourth seal. Then this is another sign of the fourth seal with Europe. So there's Bolton back there. He's our neocon. And there's Angela Merkel, who's staring down Trump. But the relations between the United States and the EU have been strained since last year following several decisions by the current American administration, by Trump. The U.S. withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal, which implied lifting anti-Tehran sanctions in exchange for Iran maintaining a peaceful nature of its nuclear program. But they didn't. Iran always lies. So Washington also reimposed all sanctions and imposed new ones, which with a stated goal of bringing down Iran's oil exports to zero, despite opposition in Europe. Europe needs the oil. Their prices are through the roof already. And the United States is a net exporter of oil right now. So Trump is sitting in a catbird position. Here's the sign of the seventh seal. This is so wonderful. So this is Danny Danon. That's his picture there. And he is the Israeli ambassador to the UN. And he is reading from the Torah to the people at the United Nations. So my comment on this is when Israel leads the world to repentance, God will remember people like Danny Danon. So my quote from Isaiah 44 that I think relates to this is, "Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thou Jeshurun, who I have chosen. For I will pour water upon the thirsty land and streams upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon thy seed and my blessing upon thy offspring. And I have blotted out as a thick cloud thy transgressions, and as a cloud thy sins. Return to me, for I have redeemed thee." And God is planning to redeem them. And this is one of those signs of the redemption. This is like the seventh seal in terms of people repenting and coming close to God the Father. And some of them will come through Yeshua the Son, but you know what? They'll get there eventually. Don't worry, pray for them. We're going to deal with prophecy today. What we're going to be looking at is, of course, the 10 toes, which is from Daniel 2, the dream there, and you know, the monster. So we have the 10 toes down below, and the 2 feet, and the 2 legs of silver, and the bronze midsection, and it was the iron legs and the mixed clay down below, and then the silver chest area, and then the gold head. Well, that is somewhat similar to what's going on in Revelation 13 and 17 and 18 as we have these 10 beasts like entities coming together and running the world. And then you have a leader of them, which is the beast himself. We call him the Antichrist. But also you have to factor in the harlot church, which is Chrislam, Edom, the Roman Catholic churches. They morph into more of a Chrislam, and then the Word of Faith people that are coming in right now. So let's look at it. Let's look at it in terms of 10 plus 2, these two leaders, and see if we can find some 12s out there that are interesting for prophecy and tie it all together. And then, so we're going to talk about Revelation 17, which is 10, once again, of these horns, the harlot plus the beast. So there's the harlot riding on the beast until it turns around and burns her and eats her. But really, I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast filled with blasphemous names and having 7 heads and 10 horns. If you subtract 7 from 10, you're going to come up with 3 locations that the Antichrist rules from, according to Prophet Sadhu Sundar Severage. So just keep this in mind, that this 10 factors through, but you also have to compare the harlot and the beast in with that somehow and look for signs. So we're going to be going into 2nd Esdras or 4th Ezra, and we're also going to go into Baruch and look at that too. So first let's go into 4th Ezra and then see how it dovetails exactly into Baruch. So this is his final and 7th vision, the 12 parts. I told him many wondrous things and showed him the secrets of the times and the end of the times. That's where we are. I commanded him, saying, you will make these words public, but you will keep these other words secret. Now I say to you, the signs that I showed you, the dreams that you saw, and the interpretations you heard, place them in your heart. You will be taken from among human beings, and you will associate from now on with my son and those who are like you until the end, until the times are finished. The age is no longer young, and the times are beginning to grow old. The age is divided into 12 parts. 9 parts and a half of the 10th part have already passed. 2 parts in addition to the half of the 10th part remain. Now look at that as a statement. Move forward into Baruch, 2nd Baruch. And God answered and said to me, that time will be divided into 12 parts, and each part has been preserved for that which is appointed. In the first part, the beginning of the commotions. In the second part, the slaughtering of the great. In the third part, the fall of many into death. The fourth part, the drawing of the sword. In the fifth part, famine and the withholding of rain. In the sixth part, earthquakes and terrors. Seventh isn't listed. The eighth part, a multitude of ghosts and the appearances of demons. The ninth part, the fall of fire. In the 10th part, rape and much violence. In the 11th part, injustice and unchastity. In the 12th part, disorder and the mixture of all that has been before. So it should all mix together, and we should see disorder, injustice, unchastity, and we'll see violence and things like that. So these parts of that time will be preserved and will be mixed one with another, and they will minister to each other, just like the miry clay of Daniel 2:43 and 44. The miry clay is the mixture of iron and clay, and they really don't mix that well, but they will minister to each other. For some of these parts will withhold a part of themselves, will take from others, and will accomplish that which belongs to them and to others. Hence, those who live on the earth in those days will not understand that it is the end of time. So as you see these things changing, because it's so gradual, you won't understand. And many people across the world today do not understand that it is the end of times. And that's 2nd Baruch 27. They sound the same. Now we're going to move into a prophecy and show you an eagle versus serpents from Michael Boldea. And you're saying, who is this Michael Boldea and who cares about the eagle and the serpents? It'll all tie together. You'll see it. So there's a picture of Michael, the young man. There's his grandfather, Dumitru Duduman, who was a prophet that said America will burn. Here's his picture of the cities in America that will burn. I'm from Minnesota, and that's getting close to home right there if that area burns. That's my BWCA, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, and I love it dearly. And I'm an outdoorsman, so you'll know that about me. And then the other cities on the coastlines will burn. Now, he agrees with David Wilkerson and with Henry Groover and other top modern day prophets. So I'm not a cessationist. I believe that there are prophets. Now, very few of them are true prophets, and very few of them stay with the prophetic message. But I trust these two people, and I've met Michael. I've met Michael Boldea, and I've also met Henry Groover and had a nice chat with each one of them. And I do stay in touch with Michael Boldea too. And I'd love to invite him to our place sometime. The eagle and the serpent. So this is where we get into his storyline, his dream. So I dreamt I was walking through a sparsely wooded forest, and suddenly my attention was drawn to an eagle flying high above the tree line. It was a beautiful sight to behold as the eagle rode the thermals, flying in the slow, lazy arcs across the blue sky. I began to quicken my pace and keep up with the eagle's flight, all the while keeping an eye on it, noticing that it was slowly descending toward the earth. I followed it for a long time, its descent not being sudden but very gradual. Finally, I came upon a small clearing where there was no trees, just some bushes on the edges and green grass. The eagle landed in the clearing and it began to look around, not seeming to notice me. As I began to wonder what the relevance of this was, a man dressed in white, hands clasped in front of him, appeared beside me and said, "Be patient. In due time you will see the purpose." I was silent as I watched the eagle and was beginning to grow somewhat impatient. Then suddenly, it seemed out of nowhere, a brown snake lunged at the eagle and bit down on its left wing. The snake's strike was very quick and very precise. The eagle reacted without delay, clawing and pecking at the snake, cutting deep wounds in its underbelly, trying to defend itself and ward off the serpent. Just as it seemed, the eagle was winning the battle, and the serpent was retreating. Another serpent appeared, red and black diagonal stripes covering its body, and without hesitation struck at the eagle's right wing, biting down and refusing to release. After a momentary tug of war, the serpent tore off the flesh and feathers, leaving a large wound on the eagle's right wing. The second bite was much worse than the first, and for an instant the eagle was stunned. Then a serpent, much larger than the previous two, made of many colors, slithered toward the eagle, opened its jaws, and lunged, taking the whole of the eagle's head in its mouth before biting down. The serpents retreated, and the man who had been standing beside me walked to the eagle, knelt down, picked it up, and held it in his cupped hands. The look of grief on his face was beyond any I have seen in my life. Just seeing the look on his face broke my heart, broke his heart. The man continued to look down at the eagle and with a pained voice said, "The true tragedy is that at any moment it could have sought the safety of the above. It could have soared toward the heavens and would have found its protection. This has been revealed to you so that you may know the first bite has been, the second is yet to come, and the third will be its destruction." And he prophesied this. He saw this vision back in 2004. Let's look at the eagle a little bit more and let's compare and contrast that with Ezra as we move forward. This is the Roman eagle, the sign of victory. This is the Nazi eagle. The eagle's been used many, many different times, and you know there's a United States eagle too. It is the sign of terror. It is this. It is the sign of terror. Just keep that in mind. The empire, it's the sign of empires too. The Hittites are the first ones to have used the eagle, whether the single eagle or the double eagle. I believe it was the double-headed. They're the sons of Heth. That is known as a terrorist. They lived nearby, the ancient Hebrews, and so when the sons of Heth would stop by, or when Abraham had to bury Sarah there, he had to buy the cave of Machpelah from the sons of Heth, the sons of terrorists. This is a picture of a two-headed eagle with all the kingdoms, and so it is a kingdom type of an empire type of a symbolism, and that's what the eagle means in terms of conquering and to be conquered. Now, we're going to move forward and describe the iconography of the eagle and the double-headed eagle. So in heraldry and vexillology, the double-headed eagle is a charge associated with the concept of empire. Most modern uses of the symbol are directly or indirectly associated with its use by the Roman Byzantine Empire, whose use of it was represented by the empire's dominion over the Near East and the West. The symbol is much older, and its original meaning was debated among scholars. The eagle has long been a symbol of power and dominion. The double-headed eagle motif appears to have its ultimate origin in the ancient Near East, especially in the Hittite iconography. It reappeared during the High Middle Ages, circa 10th or 11th century, notably used by the Byzantines, and they were anti-Semitic too. But then it moved on to Islamic Spain, France, and Serbian Principality, and Russian and things like that. The Mamluks from Egypt used it too, and the Holy Roman Empire, and then also used by Serbia and Russia within the Christian world. And this is from Wikipedia too. So the double-headed eagle, this is Hittite iconography. And so this is, they hated the Hebrews, and they were terrorists, and they had double eagles for power. This is from 4th Ezra. So now we're going to see another view of the eagle. Not Michael Boldea's, this is from Ezra. So many people consider Ezra, 4th Ezra, to be scripture. On the second night I had a dream. I saw an eagle with 12 feathered wings and 3 heads rising up from the sea. The sea is generally the peoples, according to Revelation 17:15. As I looked, it spread its wings over the whole earth, and all the winds of heaven blew toward it, and the clouds gathered around it. One of its wings grew opposing wings. These became small, tiny wings. Its heads were at rest. The middle head was larger than the other heads, but it was also at rest with them. I kept looking and saw the eagle flying with its wings to rule over the earth and over those who lived on the earth. I saw how everything under heaven was made to submit to it, and no one opposed it, not a single creature that lives on the earth. I looked and saw the eagle rise on its talons and call out to its wings, saying, "Don't all watch together. Let each one sleep in its place and take turns watching, but the heads will be kept for the end." I looked and saw that the voice didn't come from its heads, but from the middle of its body. I counted its opposing wings, and there were 8 of them. A wing arose on the right side and ruled over the whole earth. Moving on, and while it was ruling, it came to an end and disappeared, so that its place vanished. The next one rose up, and it ruled, and it held sway a long time. While it was exercising its rule, it came to an end to its end, and so it disappeared, like the previous one. Then a voice rang out, saying to this wing, "Listen, you have held sway over the earth all this time. I announce this to you before you begin to disappear. No one after you will hold sway as long a time, not even half as long." A third wing raised itself up, and it also exercised rulership like the previous ones, and it too disappeared. And so it happened to each of the wings in turn, to come to power and then never be seen again. I looked, and indeed the wings that followed on the right side also rose up in time, so that they might too rule. But some of those who came to power disappeared immediately, while others of them rose up but didn't succeed in establishing their rule. After all this, I looked again, and the 12 wings and the 2 little wings had disappeared. Nothing remained on the body of the eagle except the 3 heads that were at rest and 6 little wings. I looked and noticed that the 2 of the 6 little wings were set apart and remained under the head on the right side, but 4 remained in their place. I watched as these little wings plotted to rise up and take power. One was raised up, but it was immediately disappeared, and then a second, but this one disappeared more quickly than the previous one. I saw the 2 that were left plotting among themselves that they too should rule, and while they were making their plans, one of the heads that had been at rest, the one in the middle, woke up. This one was bigger than the other 2 heads. I saw how it formed a partnership with the 2 other heads. I'm saying that might be the Antichrist and the false prophet. And then how the head turned with those that were with it and ate the 2 little wings that had planned to rule. Moreover, this head gained power over the whole earth and dominated those who lived on it, inflicting great distress. And it had greater power over the whole world than all the wings that had gone before. After all this, I watched as the middle head, just like the wings, suddenly disappeared. There were 2 heads left. I argue the false prophet and the Antichrist, however, which also ruled over the earth and over those who live in it. I looked and watched as the head on the right side devoured the one on the left. At some point in time, the Antichrist will devour the false prophet. It will happen. He'll burn him, and the harlot, the Chrislam, whatever else, will be destroyed by the Antichrist, the beast. Finishing it out, I looked and saw something like a lion being roused. That's our Messiah. Roaring out of the forest. I heard how he spoke in a human voice and said to the eagle, "Listen, you, and I will speak to you. The Most High says to you, aren't you the last of the 4 beasts that I made to rule in my world, so that I might bring about an end of my times through them?" While the lion was saying these words to the eagle, I looked and saw that the remaining head had disappeared, the 2 wings, so the Antichrist goes away too. The 2 wings that had gone over it rose up and set themselves up to reign, and their reign was brief and full tumult. And I looked again, and they were already vanishing. The whole body of the eagle was burned, and the earth was exceedingly terrified. That is the end. So this is a commentary on this from an Acts group. Ezra is perplexed and asks the Lord for an interpretation of this vision. The Lord speaks to Ezra and confirms the eagle is the 4th beast of Daniel's vision. So that's the beast where it isn't really described, but in this case it's described as an eagle, which is interesting. That adds extra information to Daniel 7, or in this case Daniel 12 too. The wings are 12 kings which will rule over it. And the 3 heads are the final 3 kings which will arise in the final days. One will be poisoned while the other 2 die by the sword. These are probably to be taken as Roman emperors, but I wouldn't argue that. Although then you'd have to argue with the start, and that would be a big problem. Would it be Julius, Augustus? We don't know. So odds are it isn't. And also it has to relate to the end times. And if the three minor rulers are to be included in the sequence, say Revelation 18 or Revelation 13, where there is the series of these 10 kings, well, then how do you make this all work out? So really, it's better to argue that this is the end times vision of the eagle. The lion is the Messiah, no doubt about that. And he comes at the end of days from the line of David. He will denounce the final beast and deliver the remnant of the people of the Lord and make them joyful in the end on the day of judgment. So, as I've always stated, the beast will burn. It's a holocaust, just like the term from the World War II time frame, the Holocaust. That's an Ola offering. He will burn the harlot, Chrislam, Edom. This eagle system is burned and eaten, and this is the Notre Dame as it was burning, and it is an interesting picture. Now the end begins. Publish this. It's rather an ominous picture of how the beast will burn the harlot, Chrislam, Edom, and the eagle. So let's look at Revelation 17 so you can get a picture of what I'm talking about. So the 10 horns again, plus the beast and the whore equal 12. Then he said to me, the waters that you saw where the whore is sitting are the peoples, the crowds, the nations, and the languages. Do you see that? As for the 10 horns that you saw and the beast, they will hate the whore. That's Chrislam. That's the eagle that I'm arguing. Bring her to ruin, leave her naked, eat her flesh, and consume her with fire. For God put it in their hearts to do what will fulfill his purpose. That is, to be of one mind and give their kingdom to the beast until God's words have accomplished their intent. And the woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. There's a lot of conjecture that goes along with the Ezra vision of the three-headed eagle. This is someone's commentary over here. It has to do with seals, or it has to do with whatever. And he's comparing and contrasting Revelation 13 with 4th Ezra or 2nd Ezra. It's the same thing, 11 and 12. And he's seeing the beast and the false prophet in there too, which is interesting. And so just be aware of it, that there is some conjecture, but it's very interesting. My argument is that when you jump into Daniel 8, you should see the systems vying against each other, the two final systems. You should see the shaggy goat defeating the ram. And the ram, I am arguing, is the Roman Catholic Church, which is a combination. It's called Chrislam now. The harlot, it's also known as, it's the eagle, and it's a globalist system, but it will be defeated by the Antichrist, the beast system, the globalists. And we are the monarchists. We're the people down below. We're with Daniel watching all of this happen as the systems compete. And we don't want to take the mark of 666. We do not want to join into the harlot system and be burnt with her, and we do not want to take the mark of the beast. So the beast has players, and it could be 10 of them. It may be more of that, many other leaders, and at some point in time, it'll be pared down to 10 horns. And so we don't know who the players are, but we know the players are in existence today. They're there. And so it's a matter of who's going to jump up and seize control, but the Antichrist will seize ultimate control. But these people are all vying for their positions. And then, on the other hand, people are vying for power with the Pope in the harlot system. And so they want the same fate as the eagle. They want to be eaten and burnt by the beast system. And so they're joining in. One of them already that was burnt and eaten was Tony Palmer. He's dead. You can see Tony Palmer and the skull sitting next to him there. As soon as he brokered the deal to get these people together in this meeting with the Pope, he died. He died on his motorcycle right after that. He was a tough guy, too. He was a bodybuilder. So it's very interesting to see the peoples come in now, the leaders, the word of faithers, we'll call them, come in and kiss the Pope's ring and await their fate, which will be burnt and eaten by the beast. Here's Rick Warren and his buddies Brian Houston and others coming in and forming Chrislam. And so Chrislam is that term where you add Christian and Muslim together, and you define it as Chrislam. And this is what's happening in 2019 is these various organizations, Word of Faithers and whatever else, they're coming in to kiss the Pope's ring. And so what you have to be aware of is that the Catholic Church is aware of this too, that they know that they will be burned and eaten. So in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, Petrus Romanus, who will feed his flock amidst many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people. The end. And that's the prophecy from St. Malachi, and that he prophesied this probably around 1143, nearly 1,000 years ago. And so we're waiting for Peter the Roman, which we believe is the Pope Francis, to get going and get this harlot system, Chrislam, together. And that is the end of the video. Thank you very much for your time. Be blessed. And we'll give you some more at some point in time that will explain these systems more. Thank you. Be blessed. Bye-bye.